Hey, welcome back to another video, folks. Join me outside today. Not quite as sunny as it was this morning. I've had a busy morning, being quite productive for a change actually, rather than just sitting around. So I'm a bit later doing it, and the sun's gone in, which is a shame, but hey ho. Put the jacket on, and it's just nice to be in the fresh air, isn't it, rather than working indoors. Which is a strange concept for me, as you can imagine. Normally out and about. I hope you've been managing to get out a little bit, if the lockdown's changed a bit wherever you are. Yeah, today's video is about the big three. It sounds like we're going on a wildlife trip in Africa or something, but it's more of a camping type theme, so it might be useful for those of you doing your mountain leader or just anyone sort of doing hill walking, camping kind of stuff really. The big three, what are they? Before I say what they are, you probably guess what they are, but before I say what they are, they're the biggest area you can save weight. That's why I'm talking about them. We can look at all the little things like cutting the handle off your toothbrush. Yep, did that when I was a kid. You can take one less pair of spare socks. You can have instead of having a nice light stove, you can have a super light titanium stove. All these kind of things will save you little bits of weight, but these big three things are where you're going to save like plenty of weight, and it's going to really make a difference. So what are they? It's your rucksack, your sleeping bag and your tent. That's where you're going to save potentially a lot of weight. Before we chat about it, what you're going to realise is it's all a compromise, right? And that compromise for some people will be too much, right? So one person's nice and light and happy will be another person's absolute misery, okay? So it's different for everyone. So we're just like planting the seed of thought about saving some weight really, but as I say, it's always a compromise. Something that's light, probably it's more expensive, probably it won't last as long, probably there's not as much space in it. There's always downsides to being light, okay? But the upside is you're going to feel fresher in your legs, and just have a nicer time, do you know what I mean? So for me, that's often worth it. Your level of comfort will change throughout the years. You'll be happy with one thing, then another thing, then another thing. Definitely as I get a little bit older, I'd rather carry a little bit more weight and be a little bit more comfortable these days. That's my thought process. But that doesn't mean I don't give it a lot of thought still as to what I take and where I can save weight. So without further ado, this is kind of what I use for maybe one overnight, right? I use this Patagonia Ascensionist rucksack. It's 35 litres. It weighs 890 grams. I'm going to quote some weights, and if I'm off by a few grams I do apologise, but 890 I think is pretty close to what it weighs. 35 litres, quite small. Okay, so you can only get away with a bag this small if your other items are kind of small and stuff as well. I love this rucksack. It's comfortable, and that's really key, isn't it? So if it's comfortable for me, it doesn't mean it'll be comfortable for you. I like Patagonia stuff, but if it didn't fit well, I wouldn't use it. It's as simple as that. It's nice, simple rucksack. It's got not loads of pockets on it that don't really do much for me. It's just one big compartment with a lid pocket. Done. All right. It's got your compression straps, it's got your ice sacks attachments, that kind of thing. I've even taken the waist belt off this one because if I'm packing nice and light, I don't feel the need for it. Okay. On my bigger rucksack, which I'll show you in a second, kept the waist belt on that because I'm carrying a bit more weight and I find it more effective. So 35 litre rucksack. And what have I got in it? Well, I've got my nice light. This is a mountain equipment sleeping bag, this one. It's a Titan light. I don't think they make it anymore. This weighs a fraction over 600 grams and it'll pack down a bit smaller as well. I just put it in the compression bag and strapped it up pretty quick, but it'll go a bit smaller. So it goes smaller, means I can have a smaller rucksack, that's great. And it's lighter, so I'm more comfortable again, aren't I? But where do I lose the comfort? If it gets cold. This is a thin sleeping bag. This is like summer, warm end of spring, warm end of autumn only. Outside of that, I'm going to be freezing. I'm not going to get a good night's sleep, and therefore I'm not going to be happy. All right, compromise, always compromise. How much does this cost compared to some heavier, cheaper rucksack from Black's own brand kind of thing, or whomever? I don't even know if Black's have their own brand, but if they do, it's going to be more money. The same with this. It's nice and light and everything. It's going to be more money. It's down as well, so remember we're down. You've got to keep it dry, otherwise it's going to be useless. Wet down does not give you any insulation whatsoever. That's nice and small, isn't it? Like I say, we'll go a fraction smaller. And then the other light item, well, as I said, that's your tent. So for me, I've gone on about this before on videos, the Nordisk Telemark, right? This is the one-person version. It tells you the weight on it, 830 grams. That's flipping light for a tent, isn't it? Like, really light. I love that about this tent. What I don't like about this tent is the condensation issues. What I don't like about this tent are the lack of height in it. I don't like the amount it flaps when it's windy, right? Well, there's some good things about it other than the weight as well. Like it's got a nice big porch. It's quite a wide tent as well, but it's flawed in some ways. Do you know what I mean? But 830 grams, oof, that's a nice thing to be carrying, isn't it? Compared to your big tents, that's a potentially really big weight saving, isn't it? A regular tent, even if it's a small one, will probably still weigh somewhere close to 1.5 kilos, so not far off halving the weight. So think about it, I'm doing some maths on the fly here. Let's round these numbers up as well. 900 grams there, let's say the tent was 800, that's close enough for me, we're at 1800. And then I said the sleeping bag was 600 and something, so 2.5 kilos there or thereabouts for those big 3 items. I know some people that come on ML trainings and assessments that I run, and that's what their tent weighs, before even taking into account the rucksack and the sleeping bag. So it's a real big saving, isn't it? And like I say, you're going to have a nicer time as long as the weather and conditions allow you to have those light things, all right, and you can put up with them. Just to compare it to the heavier options. Sleeping bag. Outkit one, I've no idea what the model is if I'm honest, but it weighs around 1,400 grams, so it's 1.4 kilos, isn't it? But I'm warmed down to that -15. I've taken this sleeping bag here, there and everywhere. It's a proper luxurious thing to get into at night. So is it worth the extra weight? Absolutely it is sometimes, for sure it is. It will go a bit smaller when you sit on it and crank those straps as well. It doesn't have to be quite this big. But what a thing to have with you, something that's going to keep you like properly toasty overnight, rather than waking up every hour and shivering and having to have a hot drink and all those kind of things. We've had to do that before and you've got it wrong, because you'll get it wrong at some point. The tents, flipping heck, this Mac Pack tent that I've shown in other videos again as well, absolute beast, loads of space for 2 people, take an absolute beating from the weather as well. I should have looked at what this weighs, but I think it's a fraction under 3. I think it's 2.7 or something like that. You can have to look it up, but slightly older model anyway. But look at the size of it. Let's put that in this small rucksack, and then let's put that sleeping bag in that small rucksack. And obviously I haven't packed these very well, but look, it's like it's overflowing already, and that's just the big 3 items. That's not, I haven't got a stove or anything else in there at all. I've said compromise like at least 100 times in this video already, but that's what you end up doing a lot of the time. You have a tent like this, a Sierra Design Studio 2, weighs a little bit under 1.5 kilos. It's 2 people, a friendly 2 people, me and the dog kind of thing. It's reasonably sort of sturdy. It's more sturdy than the Nordisk one. It's not far off twice the weight of it though, is it? But it's not as big as that Mac Pack one in weight or size. So it's that compromise, right? And then the sort of, what's it going to go in? Well, the rucksack itself. This is a big weight saving area, okay? I've said that the Patagonia one is just under 900 grams. There you go. Here's not a heavy rucksack. I think it's the heaviest one I've got. Black Diamond Speed 40. And this one weighs a fraction under 1.2 kilos, so like 1,190 or something. So immediately that's it's a chunk heavier, isn't it, right? But it's bigger, it gets more in it, obviously. That's sometimes much nicer to use, in bad weather, trying to squeeze everything into a little rucksack like this when you've got freezing cold fingers and everything's a bit damp and it's kind of sticking to everything else. Can be absolutely desperate, this one. So sometimes it's nice to sacrifice the weight. Remember I said I keep the waist belt on that, and it's just generally a bit more sort of padded and stuff. So sometimes that's the right thing to do, isn't it? So if you're going like super heavyweight, let's do the figures on that as well. Let's assume that Mac Pack tent was like 2.5 kilos. Add that to that, you're at like over 3.5 kilos. Plus the big boy sleeping bag, that was over that as well. So what are we up to there? We're up to nearly, perhaps like 5 kilos there. Flipping it, that's a lot, isn't it? 5 kilos, crikey, that's loads, isn't it? Oh, 5 kilos compared to 2.5-ish kilos. We've doubled the weight there, haven't we? Is that going to be the end of the world? Of course it's not. Are you going to be able to put up with it? Probably yes. Is it going to cost you more energy? For sure it is. Is it going to make you a bit slower? Perhaps. Will it mean you have to have more calories to keep topped up? Perhaps, yes. Will you be as fresh as possible? Perhaps not. So I think with videos like this, it's not me telling you to go and buy a Patagonia Essentialist. Far from it. What I think they're kind of about is just prompting some thought, really. Do you know what your rucksack weighs? Do you know what your sleeping bag weighs? Do you care? Maybe if you've made it this far in the video, probably you do care. But it's worth some thought, isn't it? And just having that balance between light is right and being comfortable, or carrying far too much kit and suffering because of it. I always remember back to an ML assessment I ran years ago, when one fellow who was really good, actually their skill level was really high, but they completely let it go to pot on their expedition part of their ML assessment. So they're just carrying too much, and you could tell that they just got properly tired from it, and because they were tired, the navigation slipped and all that kind of stuff, so they just started making more and more errors, and sadly they deferred on their assessment, not because of carrying too much kit, but because of the knock-on effect of it. Right? I'm inherently lazy. I want to carry as little as possible that's going to keep me comfortable. So get that balance right. You will get it wrong at some point, and it will change from week to week, season to season, from year to year as to what that is. Have a good look at the weather forecast. Make sure you're packing the right stuff. If in doubt, err on the side of caution. I'd much rather be too hot than shivering my way through the night, or be a bit more tired rather than being super cold and all that kind of stuff. That transfers across to other stuff as well, doesn't it? Like food, I'd rather have a little bit too much food, to be honest, than not enough, right? But yeah, I hope that has provoked a bit of thought as to what you carry in terms of the big three, and transferring onto other stuff, like I say, as well. Please do fire away if you've got any questions at all. I hope the birds haven't been too noisy. I can hear them twittering away. I've got little blue tits nesting just in the corner over there. It's really nice to see them flitting in and out. But yeah, do fire away with questions, as always, of course. Find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, you know the score. Hit that like button, smash the subscribe button. Hope you've enjoyed this video. More videos coming up very soon.